This is View from the Top. I'm Modele Sarafa-Yusuf, and I thank you for joining us. The World Health Organization calls it one of the world's most virulent diseases. But since 1976, when it was first discovered, the Ebola virus disease had been something that Nigerians read about only on the pages of newspapers. That was until last month when a certain Liberian, Patrick Sawyer, imported the disease into Nigeria. And since then, EVD has been one of the most talked about topics in the country. On View from the Top today, I'll be speaking with Nigeria's foremost virologist and President, Nigeria Academy of Science, Professor Oyewale Tomori. He was a front-runner in the research efforts that investigated the feared viruses such as Ebola, Lassa fever, yellow fever, and a hitherto unknown virus, the Orongo virus, which he elucidated the properties of and registered with the International Committee of Virus Taxonomy. Professor Oyewale Tomori was also pioneer vice-chancellor of the Redeemers University and a delegate to the recently concluded national conference. And we'll be discussing the dreaded Ebola virus, tertiary education, and the national conference, among others. Professor Tomori, I thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
But before we begin our conversation, here are a few more things I'd like you to know about my guest. Professor Oyewale Tomori was born in Ilesha on 3rd February 1946. He attended Government College Ughelli and the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. He did his postgraduate studies in the University of Ibadan and received his Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree from ABU and later a certificate in immunology and PhD in virology, both from the University of Ibadan. He became the head of Department of Virology at the University of Ibadan in 1984, and in 1994 he was appointed as the regional virologist for the WHO Africa region. Professor Tomori was recalled from active service in the WHO to serve as the first vice-chancellor of the Redeemers University. Professor Tomori, there is this hysteria surrounding Ebola. Why do you think there is this panic, and is it justified?
First of all, Ebola is a very severe and very, if I use the word, horrendous disease. It's a disease which spreads panic in people who have it. And where it has occurred, it has created a lot of panic, and for special reasons, because the mortality rate is very high. The first time it occurred, almost 90% of those who had it died. And so with that kind of situation, you get worried. So panic, yeah, it should be, but then ideally when you look at the disease, where proper health systems are in place, it's not that everybody who gets it dies. A lot of people still survive Ebola.
It's been said that there are two epidemics here, the epidemic of fear and the epidemic of the disease itself. Is fear a good thing here? Does it keep you on your toes, or does it stop you from doing the right thing?
No, I think fear is wrong. Fear comes out of ignorance. The less you know about it, the more worried you are. Even among scientists, especially for us where we don't even know the host. Anything you see around that moves, you think it could be Ebola. And that's why we have all sorts of stories today about don't eat bushmeat, don't eat that one. Nobody has actually any proof of any of those things that they contain Ebola. And because we don't have the knowledge, then we are afraid of everything. Like you say, if you lose something, you search for it everywhere. So also with Ebola. People are looking for Ebola in plants, in animals, in the water we drink. Because we don't have the information.
We still don't have the information all these years.
What we have about Ebola is that where evidence, some circumstantial evidence, has shown that people who have had contact with bats could get the infection. People have they found antibodies in bats to Ebola. Usually, if you have the antibody and the bats are doing well, it means they are the host. It's because we are not naturally host of Ebola. That's why when we get it, as human beings, we die. Chimpanzees also die from getting Ebola. So really, all this search, I remember when we were in Kikwit in 1995, our team went looking for everything from World Gecko to anything you could find, just to check whether it contained the virus, but we didn't find it. The only evidence that is available today is that between fruit bats and possibly chimpanzees, you could have the virus could be the host. But the real evidence we have is that fruit bats at the moment we know are the host of the disease.
Apart from the fact that this has no cure, what makes this virus so dangerous?
Just basically the same reason you've given, that it has no cure and the mortality rate is very high. This is a virus that affects virtually every organ. And once you get it, it's almost like you're going to die. And those who experience it, when they describe what they have, it's really an excruciating disease. However, as I mentioned earlier on, it's not a disease that kills everybody. Some reasons we don't yet understand, some people naturally will overcome the disease. Since we don't have any vaccine yet that has been used in human beings, that is approved for use in human beings, then the fear again becomes more worrisome. When people get it, then they are really scared about it.
You talked about vaccines now. How close are we to getting the vaccine?
Actually, there are experimental vaccines which have worked in monkeys, but they have not been tested in human beings. And usually, if not for the current situation that is on, what we are testing would not normally be used on human beings without first going through all the phases of testing. But the vaccine will, if approved, if eventually is found useful in human beings, then it means that once you have the vaccine, just like you have for yellow fever, then you won't get the disease even if it comes along. So that would be the ultimate approach to solving the problem of Ebola. What
do you know about the drug nanosilver?
That's again, that's part of the panic that comes in. Nanosilver, as most people have shown, is more like a disinfectant. In parts of the US, they actually use it as a pesticide. So when issues like this come up, you have people, all sorts of charlatans coming up with different things. We've had stories about the drug in cola. It has been tested maybe in the lab, but definitely not in human beings. So there was this, both at the government level, there was this need to rush to finding a quick solution. And I think without the scientific evidence, I think it's a wrong step. And I'm glad that we didn't get ourselves involved in using nanosilver in this country.
While we're talking a short while ago, you talked about the scale of this present epidemic. Why has it been different from what we've seen in the past?
I think it's a very important point to note, because Ebola has occurred in about 20 outbreaks now since 1976, mainly in East and Central Africa. Until it got to West Africa, it did not become an issue of global importance. And I think there's several factors that we need to look at. One, I want to start with the human approach. A lot of people here in West Africa, I think we have a sense of we have a solution to every problem. And even when you give a rule, when you give rules, sanitary rule, and say, please don't do this, people are going to ask you why. Why should I do it? And I think this is part of that's one of the issues. In the east parts of the Eastern Africa, wherever we've had these epidemics, people have been told, please don't go to this way because of this problem. People generally tend to obey, which is quite different. Secondly, Liberia, Sierra Leone are just recovering from war. Their health system is in total disarray. And so when it came, actually whatever progress they've made since the war, Ebola is going to wipe it out. I think also the leadership of the country there was denial. There was no immediate acceptance. And Ebola is, one of the problems with Ebola is that it's so easy to spread it because of the cultural issues we have about burials and things. And when people don't come to the hospital, and you go to a traditional healer who doesn't know exactly what he's dealing with, and people get moved to it, then all these people become sources of infection on us. And so it has spread in West Africa for all those three reasons. The health system is terribly bad. The government was in denial to start with. We in West Africa, I think we need to be a little bit more cautious when it comes to the issue of health. And finally...
And burials.
Yes, exactly.
How would you rate Nigeria's reaction to this epidemic so far?
Let me say that we're very lucky. It wasn't initially that we're prepared, and we need to remember that. But
Patrick Sawyer,
if he had not collapsed at the airport, if he had not been taken through the VIP rather than through the mass of the people, if the doctors were not on strike, he would have gone into either Luth or maybe Ikeja. But instead, he went to a private clinic where they limited the number of exposure. Because he collapsed at the airport, he couldn't get through to Calabar where he was going. In which case, he would have gone through Aluka Airport and into Calabar and probably exposing more people. So that was said, we were lucky. It was fortunate that all those circumstances made it possible for us to detect at that point. But thereafter, we must commend both the Lagos State government and the federal government for the action that they've taken to be able to contain it as now. If not, we probably would have had a much bigger problem in our hands. I think we've done well, but we're not out of the woods yet, because there are cases still on. And so long as people will not come out and tell the truth of their contact, of whom they contact with, and people who are sick are not coming out, then we still have the danger that this could still spread within the country. So
what do we need to be doing?
We need to continue with the awareness to let people who might have had contact, no matter how, where it's close contact, who might have contact with anybody who has been sick or declared sick, to come out quickly so that the doctors and the health authorities can take care of such a person. We must, at the same time, the real fact about Ebola must be said out. Those things that make it easy to spread dread disease, public awareness must be the issues. And I think we can contain this problem if we keep that kind of awareness.
Are we getting the right kind of information out?
We are, but people enjoy sensationalism. I was reading in one of the papers the other day that 84 cases of Ebola in Nigeria. Actually, what the WHO said was that 84 people died in those countries. And then somehow they made the headline and said in Nigeria, the word Nigeria came in. So sometimes there's some sensational things which are coming out. I think we need to be very careful. Let the people who are in the press get their facts. There is an emergency operations center who have all the information. They should please go there and confirm whatever information they have, so that people will not be panicking with all the information, the wrong information that goes out.